Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know, this is a lesson that you should learn really early on in your life. Pay attention to people's actions and not their words. You know, people say a lot of things, they make a lot of claims, but do they actually stand by it? If you're to trust somebody, if you're to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're actually gonna do what they say, well, you need a little bit more than words, you need action. Again, I repeat myself. Well, you know, we tend, or at least we try to practice this in our real lives, in our relationships with people, but now the question I'm asking is, why don't we hold politicians to the same standard? You know, elected officials are elected for a reason, to represent the people that voted them in, the people of their nation, to serve those people and their needs. And of course these politicians know this, and that's why their rhetoric tends to revolve around the people. Kamala Harris keeps going on about the people, and their ambitions, their wants, their needs, but it's one thing to say it, the next step is to actually do it. You know, the action part. And well, of course, you probably get exactly where I'm going with this. This administration, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, the whole lot of them, are all talk and no frickin' action. They talk about the people, but once again, they've let the people out to dry. Let's have a conversation about this. We got two, I'd say, opposing ideologies: the Donald Trump approach, a nationalistic, America First approach, and then of course the Democrat approach, or let's call it the Kamala Harris approach, an approach that can only be described as America last. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so we've been talking about Volodymyr Zelensky and his recent visit to Washington, and of course you know exactly what that means. When Mr. Zelensky touches ground on US soil, you know billions of dollars are about to be sent over, and of course that's exactly what happened. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris announced another $2.4 billion for Ukraine.
I'm proud to announce a new $2.4 billion package of security assistance.
Of course, we know their view. They're going to continue fighting to the very last Ukrainian and the very last penny found in the American coffers. And so I guess the point I'm trying to establish is more billions for Ukraine, even in the present day, but what about American citizens? That right there is a very important question, especially considering the current circumstance. A hurricane just hit the south. It's been pretty devastating to say the least.
You can see here on your screen the powerful force as it pummels Florida. This morning, at least 3 people are said to be dead in Florida and Georgia, though the Florida governor says that death toll may rise. The eye came in Florida's Big Bend region around 11 o'clock Eastern time last night, bringing winds well above 100 miles an hour.
There's no cell service here. There's no electricity. We're going to be out of electricity. The men came out to our neighborhood. They said we're not going to have electricity for another 2 to 3 days.
Daylight revealing the damage done.
However bad we imagined it would be when we were fighting this thing in the darkness, it's so much worse in the daylight.
Hurricane Helene flattening beachfront homes and snapping trees like toothpicks.
This is a corner of E and 3rd.
The catastrophic Category 4 hurricane made landfall in Florida's Big Bend nearly 24 hours ago, but its impact is still being felt. In Cedar Key,
That building there is going to come apart.
streets filled with standing water and scattered debris. These boats tossed like toys, landing in the front yards of several homes in Treasure Island. 140-mile-per-hour winds in Perry destroying the rooftop of the Sunoco gas station and uprooting trees. Over in Asheville, North Carolina, onlookers in disbelief.
Oh my God.
Watch as this house is washed away in the distance. Historic flooding for the city, facing what officials are calling a 1-in-1,000-year rain event. Unbelievable images out of Tennessee. A helicopter having to rescue 50 people on the roof of a hospital, the building nearly underwater. In Atlanta, residents rescued by rafts as rain pounded the city. The next morning, neighbors maneuvering their way around murky waters in canoes.
And you probably get exactly where I'm going with this. What about relief and aid for American citizens who are suffering the devastating impacts of this latest natural disaster? Well, we got an answer from Joe Biden.
We've given them all everything that we have. We're on the ground ahead of time, so we're working hard.
Are there any more resources the federal government could be giving them?
No, we have pre-planned a significant amount of it, even though they didn't ask for it yet.
Yep, you heard it right. $2.4 billion for the Ukrainians, and nothing for you. Essentially, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, in a way, are turning a blind eye to the devastation caused by Hurricane Helene. Once again, another monumental failure of leadership, and a quite striking demonstration of how disconnected this administration is from the very people they claim to serve. The people, oh, we care about the people, apparently not enough to prioritize you over needless foreign conflict thousands of miles away. I mean, families have lost everything they had. I think the confirmed official death toll is already over 100, with over 600 people missing after the hurricane, and some news outlets are suggesting that it's over 1,000 people missing. But of course, instead of a swift and decisive federal response, what do you get? Empty platitudes and a government more focused on funding foreign wars than helping its own citizens. And of course, this isn't an isolated incident. Biden and Harris have shown a pattern of negligence, especially when it comes to domestic crises. Every time they prefer to play politics on the international stage rather than addressing the pain and suffering here at home. I mean, let's just jog our memories, shall we? And it really shouldn't be so difficult to remember, considering most of this stuff happened quite recently. Let's not forget what happened in Maui. Wildfires ravaged the island and left hundreds of homes reduced to ashes, entire communities displaced and lives lost. And yet Biden's response was not only delayed, but utterly tone deaf. Initially, when asked about the situation, we all remember what he said, quote, "No comment."
President, any comments on the rising death toll in Maui?
Will you come talk about the Hawaii response, Mr. President?
Nothing there.
No comment, Joe Biden says. Well, you know, what's one crisis or conflict that Joe Biden would never respond no comment to? Yeah, it's the war in Ukraine. You know, it's exactly like I said earlier. This is an America last agenda. These people continue to display total, utter disregard for the concerns and needs of actual Americans, despite their lovely rhetoric that creates this false perception that Democrats are the only ones who care. Give me a frickin' break. They don't care, and they display it time and time again, and Maui was the perfect example. When Joe Biden finally decided to show up weeks after the tragedy had unfolded, his remarks were shockingly out of touch. He compared the loss of entire communities to a small kitchen fire that he had experienced in his own home. We all remember that, right? A minor inconvenience that Joe Biden in his political career continues to display as this great tragedy that his family had suffered. It's unbelievable. And then the final response from the Biden administration was a pathetic PR stunt of dishing out $700 checks to households that were affected. I mean, what does this tell you about Kamala Harris and Joe Biden? In my opinion, it tells you all that you need to know. And it's really a pattern. It's not just what's happening right now with Hurricane Helene. It's not just Maui, but it's also East Palestine. We have 3 examples in the last 3 years. And actually, I think it might even be the last 2 years, but let's be a little bit generous and give them 3 years. East Palestine, Ohio, where a toxic train derailment turned a quiet rural town into a ticking environmental time bomb. Well, what happened after that disaster? Well, for weeks, Biden didn't even acknowledge that it had happened, let alone visit the site. He was too busy making appearances overseas, attending to international matters and working out how more taxpayer money could be sent abroad. And again, it was only after immense public outrage that Joe Biden was forced to confront the issue, and even then, his administration's response was slow, pathetic, and totally inadequate, sending Pete Buttigieg to walk around with a hard hat pretending like he was doing something. Then, of course, over 100 days after the event had happened, Joe Biden finally stepped foot in East Palestine. Just pathetic stuff, but again, a track record, a history. That is what the Kamala Biden administration has done. Just a total disregard for the homeland and its people. It's a pattern, folks. It also took Joe Biden over 100 days to call for an end to violence during the summer of riots in 2020. It is a clear pattern. These people don't care. They're just playing politics. And right now, they'd rather cater to globalist ambitions than the needs of their own citizens, the people who elected them in those positions of power to begin with. It's a gross dereliction of duty, and every single American should be outraged. One thing is clear. It's clear that under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, if you're an American suffering from a disaster or crisis, you're simply just not a priority. How utterly disgraceful. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.